We are ready. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being with us today. As always, it's a pleasure to have Allison Schaberg again with us, talking with all all these tips and this very big and important topic like is transition, right? But before we start with our presentation of today, I need to talk to you a little bit about Partners Resource Network. So Partners Resource Network is the Parent Training and Information Center for Texas, and we are funded by the Department of Education, specifically the Office of Special Education. And we provide free resources and training for parents of children with disabilities. Our mission is to empower and support Texas families and individuals impacted by disabilities or special healthcare needs. And we serve parents of children with disability and youth with disabilities from the ages from 0 to 26. Partners Resource Network was first founded in 1986, and now we have 4 projects serving parents. We have the PAT project the color is like a violet in the map. Team project is the red area. PEN project is the blue area, and the PACT project is the new one that we have, and is in green. So I'm in Region 13, so I'm in Austin, and I serve parents in all the area of Region 13. So from almost Temple to New Braunfels is the area that I cover and help parents. I'm the coordinator of that area, but the team project also serves San Antonio area, that is Region 20, and Region 1, that is the Rio Grande Valley. And our services are free, and we offer parent workshops, youth workshops, webinars, information and referrals, one-on-one technical assistance, supports in the R meetings, or prepare you for the IEP meetings. We do once a year a symposium. We have parent leadership training and youth leadership training, and we help you with access to social media and resources. So for today, important things for today, housekeeping items. If you have questions, please type it in the chat box or in the Q&A. I'm going to be monitoring those, and we are going to be asking Allison those questions that you may have. This webinar is being recorded, and we are going to share this presentation in our Facebook page, and also Consolidated Planning Group. Allison has a YouTube channel. She's going to be talking about it, where you can find all those videos with a lot of topics, like the one that we are having today. So, and another thing, at the end of this presentation, you are going to receive a link with a survey. That is an evaluation for the presentation of today, and please help us with that, fill in that information and those evaluations. That's the way that we report to our grant, and we can have free resources and trainings for you guys. We don't provide CEUs, but I can do a certificate of attendance. If you need one, please type it in the chat box or email me. You have our information and contact information that Allison and me in the chat box, and I can do certificate of attendance for you. All right, I'm going to stop sharing, and now I want to present our speaker of today. We have Allison Schaberg, again with Consolidated Planning Group. She is a financial planner, and she also is a mom of a special health needs. They have children like us with special needs, so she's very experienced and know all these topics by heart. I mean, she's the one of the founders of Consolidated Planning Groups. She already have like more than 25 years of experience working with families, helping families, and it's an honor to have her with us again today. So welcome, Allison.
Thank you, Veronica. It is a pleasure to be back with Partners Resource Network once again. So for those of you that are joining, for the first time. You've never participated in any of our webinars. We're really, really glad you're here. We can't see you or hear you, so we know you're there, but we are in webinar mode. So as Veronica mentioned, we definitely do want your questions today, and we're going to take them throughout the presentation as they come up. She will read them to me, and we'll answer just as many as we can. We are going from 12 to 1 today. We will be done by 1, so if you're trying to plan your lunch or your afternoon, you can plan that way. So Allison Schaberg here, Consolidated Planning Group. I come to you as both a parent and a professional, as Veronica mentioned. We started putting these webinars out. We met in person a lot prior to the pandemic. Welcome to everybody else's world, right? And we really started putting a lot of these webinars out over the course of the last 2 years, a year and a half, what have you, through the pandemic. From a parent perspective, I have had kids that have transitioned. I have had a child that has transitioned into adulthood, and I've got one that's in the midst of it right now. And so although I eat, sleep, and breathe this professionally, as far as, special needs planning, I'm very well aware of the challenges that kind of we're faced with as we're facing transition with our kids. That transition word is such a broad word, and they use it for everything. Transition at school, transition in medical care, transition to adulthood, transition in services and benefits. And so today we're really going to kind of talk about the financial side of the house and transitioning in some aspects. We're going to talk about some education things as well, and some things really that just need to be on your radar. And so we always say, if this is your first time, we hope you'll come back and listen again. I hope that you'll take 1 to 3 nuggets away from this presentation that you can implement for your household, for your family, put it on your list that you can get going on. We're going to talk about a lot of information, some stuff you may already know a little bit about. Some topics we're going to go a little bit deeper. But if the first thing that I want to say is that again, and I'm really glad you're here. And so if you've been feeling overwhelmed by these things, you're in the right place. And that is, you are the exact reason why we put these webinars out there, because it's unnecessary for you to feel overwhelmed. And the fact that you're not alone. Other people are feeling the same way, because there's not a really good all-together place where we can get all of this information. It's very disjointed as families, and how we move forward and process some of the stuff that we need to know for success for our kids. So first things first, when we're thinking about transition, we want to really set realistic expectations. And I always kind of joke here and say, okay, maybe this is an eye roll. Like, what do you mean? What? I need to set realistic expectations. What I mean is, really understanding the strengths and the challenges. I mean, we have an example. I sit on a board for a school, and we have a family that is, really talking about transitioning in college in the future for their child, but their child right now at this point, they're not there yet. They really need to look at a transition program, and they really need an educational evaluation to see if, college or higher education may even be in the cards. So the things to think about right now are to consider a non-traditional path. Keeping an open mind, considering all of the options. What does this look like? Now, some of our kids with disabilities, they'll never drive, and we already know that, and that's okay. Others have kids that may have the ability to drive. They may not be there yet, or it may be some specialized training that we need to consider. There are disability driving schools for kids, for anybody with a disability that needs an assessment to see if they can be a safe driver. If you've got a kid with executive functioning issues, autism, or physical disabilities that may limit their reaction time or things like that, you may want to consider this if you're still considering a driver's license for your loved one. These assessments are very, very comprehensive, and you can trust the validity of them. If you've been wondering if if this could even be in the cards or not. These type of programs are also available. It's kind of what happens when a person has a stroke or something like that, to see if they could be back to driving. So just think about that. Not most driver ed schools that do behind the wheel training do not have anybody there that is adept in disability driving. They're just teaching driver's ed in general, but you can ask at your local offices as well. So we want to talk about the thought of trade school, community college. There's a lot of programs out there with various organizations that are specifically tailored to kids with special needs. Some of them, and we'll talk more about them, are certificate programs. Some of them are degree programs. Some of them are training them in a specific industry. It could be like, it could be the hospitality industry. It could be the food industry. It could be in childcare, things like that. We want to think about the possibility of a reduced college course load as well. So when we're setting those realistic expectations, from that perspective, a full-time load at school is 12 hours. Maybe your child can't function at that capacity. Maybe we need to try one college course. Maybe we try a dual credit course while they're still in high school. Just thinking about some of those things, living at home versus on campus. But the main thing is, in this world of comparisons that we're living in, let's not compare. Let's meet them where they are. They are where they are. It's not a race, and it's okay. They're not necessarily behind. And I think sometimes as parents, we think of them as behind. We think, because of the world of comparisons. But having that flexibility to meet them where they are, you're going to see your child really thrive as they move forward. Okay, it looks like we may have some questions. You want to read those to me, Veronica?
Yes, we have the same question in the Q&A in the chat. It's about COVID-19. So according to you, how COVID-19, how we can create opportunities for improvement of services and integration process in the society for special needs teens. What I get for the question is, how is the impact of COVID-19 all the services for the kids right now in your point of view, Allison?
So I think that there's no question that COVID-19 has affected the lives of everyone all across the world, right? And so things that used to be in person, sometimes they're not in person anymore. So as we're thinking about transition services, transition programs, school programs, other things like extracurricular activities, I think the first things first is, are they meeting in person? Are they meeting online? And does either one of those, or which one is the best fit for your child? Because some of our kids just don't do well with Zoom, okay? Others have got it down pat and it's fine. And, I've got one kid that, has really, really not loved the pandemic and the lockdown. And I've got another kid that says, oh, I've been preparing for this my whole life. I love this, right? So it's like, everybody's personality is a little bit different. But from what we are seeing is that things are opening up more. There are more opportunities for in-person things, in-person interactions, and we're seeing more and more each month. So we're moving that in the right direction.
Got it. This question is, the question is from Samuel. Yes, I already say your name in the question. All right. So moving on. That's it, Allison.
Okay, sure. So when we're talking about finding a good fit, so again, we're talking about schools, transition programs. There's 18 plus programs in the public school, and then there's private transition programs. I think it's important to think about, is your child, where are they? How old are they right now? And from a realistic perspective, are they behind? So when I mean behind, are they behind educationally? Are they behind maturity-wise? So we see, we'll see, autism, ADHD, Down syndrome. I mean, from a maturity perspective, they could be 2 to 4 years, sometimes, more behind from a maturity perspective. So in that regard, they may want to stay in the public school until age 21 or 22. So the public schools, this is where you're going to work with your ARD, through your IEPs, you're going to be talking to the school, earlier. If you're planning for your child to stay in the public school beyond, the typical age 18. So that, having meaningful conversations with the school sooner versus later, and that topic is important. And some of the considerations is the public school is free, and the 18 plus programs through the public school system, things like that. And some of these other transition programs are not free. So if budget is an issue, that's something that you have to think about. And if your child leaves the public school and you don't put them in a transition program and you work full time, if you're having to have full-time caregiver services or something like that while you're working, all things to consider. So also consider that, not everybody is a good fit for higher education. Okay, so we're not like the naysayer, and maybe it's not right now. It doesn't mean no, not ever. It just might mean no, not right now. And so maybe it's a career path or a work setting. So, and I think this is in the rest of the presentation, but if you're jotting notes here, this is where I want to talk about just briefly, if you're thinking that your child might be a better fit to go to work, anybody can work. Somebody can work. They could be a greeter. They could say hello. There are many, many things. So even if your child has severe disabilities, obviously if they don't walk and they don't talk, then they're, clearly could be an issue. But I guess what I'm saying is, even if there is a severe intellectual disability, or even if there's a lot of issues, there are still programs out there to get them to work. And there are a lot of companies out there that hire our kids with disabilities, and there are programs, specifically the Texas Workforce Commission, vocational rehab, that is for kids ages 14 to 22. So if you're thinking about transition and you've got a kid between the ages of 14 to 22, we do recommend that you get them plugged into the vocational rehab through the Texas Workforce Commission. We have entire webinars on that, so you can read, you can watch those and learn a little bit more about that. But they have all kinds of services. Number one, they're going to do some testing. They're going to do the vocational evaluation. I was mentioning the vocational evaluation. They can do an educational evaluation to see if your child is going to be a good fit for higher education. They can do some of the neuropsych testing. They're going to do assessments to find out what the deficits are with your child that could be a potential impediment to employment, right? So first they're going to do those assessments, and then they're going to put a plan in place to help close the gap on those impediments and help provide the tools and resources and training that your child needs to be able to remove those stumbling blocks that are going to be in the way of education. So Texas Workforce Commission, vocational rehab, Workforce Solutions, that is going to be PREETS. They call it PREETS, Pre-Employment Training Services, and they call it SEAL, Summer Earn and Learn Programs. So there's two different agencies that have programs specifically for our kids with disabilities. So whether you're planning for your child to go to higher education or you're planning for them to go to work, this is covered through the state of Texas. They have state and nationally funded programs. So we always do recommend that you check this out, because it is going to help your child.
Catherine is saying that you slow down. She said, I need to write the names of the program. Can you tell the programs again?
Sure. I'd be happy to. So we've got Texas Workforce Commissions. TWC is the acronym that they throw around. And their program is Vocational Rehab, also known as VR. And then we've got Workforce Solutions, and they have something called PREETS. You can type that in the chat box, Veronica.
I will type that. PREETS we have here in Austin, PREETS with Texas Work Solution. And also we have the other program that you're telling them about.
Yes.
The other one.
And so for Workforce Solutions, it's PREETS, which stands for Pre-Employment Training Services. And their other program, the acronym is SEAL, S-E-A-L, and that stands for Summer, Earn, and Learn. Okay, so those are all awesome programs. And if you don't know about these programs, there are websites, and again, we have a complete webinar on this, but furthermore, you can be a self-referral. Most public schools have a VR consultant that works with the school. So you can call the guidance office, call the social worker at the school, and you can get plugged in to your counselor. They are aware of who that counselor is at your public school.
Also, guys, tomorrow at this time, we have a presentation from Bloom Consulting talking about pre-TS. So I will send you an email with the presentation of today and also the link if you want to register and have time to see our presentation about pre-ETS specifically. That's tomorrow. Okay.
And we are a fan of Bloom Consulting. Bloom Consulting does a great job. They are a company that actually vocational rehab might hire and pay for you. Okay, that are going to do the vocational evaluation that I was mentioning and some of that testing, and if wondering, determining whether or not your child could or couldn't be a good fit for higher education. They're one of the companies that we refer to, but they're also a company that VR uses, so you could get their services for free through vocational rehab. That's a possibility, but you also have the ability to work with Bloom Consulting outside of VR where you can be a private pay. So let's talk about accommodations. If we're moving to higher education, community college, or the university, the biggest thing that you need to know is that your accommodations in the public school system do not transfer to higher education, period. They just don't. So you're going to want to check early of what the requirements are for the particular school that you're interested in your child going to. If there are multiple schools that you're interested in, you need to check those accommodations for every single one of the schools and what is necessary, because guess what? Unfortunately, for our inconvenience, all schools, higher learning, and their requirements on how to get accommodations and what you have to do to get them are all different. It's not a uniform set of rules that once you know it for one school, you know it for all schools, okay? In general, they're gonna want neuropsych testing that has been done in the last 3 to 5 years. That's gonna identify any of the deficits and any of the recommendations for accommodations that are necessary. We have seen some bend on this. Some schools are longer than 5 years. Some schools will take testing that's older than 5 years. If you have a letter accommodating the testing from the physician, basically indicating that nothing else has changed, and that the results of the testing, that the person has a permanent disability, the results of the testing are accurate, and the accommodations necessary. So some schools will accept that. It could take a long time to get this testing scheduled because of the professionals that do the testing. A lot of them are backed up. So you want to get this scheduled sooner versus later. Most schools are not doing this level of testing. You could ask your district to find out. Your local intellectual disability authority may be doing this level of testing. You can do it through private pay, etc. Those are all kinds of things. But the bottom line is, unless you have testing proving the disability that your child has and what the accommodations are needed, or something very, very similar to that, you're not going to get the accommodations on the college level. So as far as SAT and ACT, couple of things to think about here. So number one, if your child is going to go to the community college first and not go to the university, it is unnecessary for them to take the SAT and the ACT. If they're going to the community college in the state of Texas, they have a TSI test, the Texas Success Initiative. TSI is basically the entrance exam for all schools, all higher education in the state of Texas. That is all that's required for the community college, and they're going to test them in reading, writing, and math. There are free and paid for practice TSIs out there on the internet, and most of the community colleges, if you call, their admissions office, or they'll have links for free testing and free practice tests and things like that. So if you are going to go to the university first, straight out of high school, the SAT and ACT may be necessary. And once again, on the university level, every school is different on whether they require the SAT, the ACT, or both, and how and what scores they accept. What are the minimum scores needed, and do they take the top highest score from each section, etc. So as far as getting accommodations for the SAT and ACT, that they are available, such things as a smaller test size. So if you've got like a test room, they could have one-on-one testing. Basically, instead of being in that giant classroom with 200 kids, they could have testing on multiple days, where they break it up instead of just on one day. They may have up to 50 to 100% more time for the test. These are kids that have executive functioning issues, processing speed delays, working memory issues, things along those lines. They can have a reader. I think that there is something where they could have, like, if they have like handwriting or, some of those issues, they may be able to type their essay if they do an essay, things like that. So that's an example of that. So my point in all of this is plan early. Check with the Office of Disability at the community college or the university. SAT and ACT, you go to their website specifically. They each have their own separate website. And when you get to their website, you can search accommodations, and it's going to take you to the page where you're going to download the application for accommodations. It will need to be signed off on by a doctor, completed and signed off on by a doctor, along with the list of requirements that they want you to submit with the application. A couple of years ago, SAT and ACT were really, really behind in approving accommodations. I've seen them speed that up. I mean, I've seen it take as long as 3 months, but then in the last year and a half, I've seen it take as short as 2 weeks. So just be prepared for that. And as far as, work is concerned, reasonable accommodation is required if it doesn't pose undue hardship. The Department of Labor website on here, one of the things, and I want you guys to write this down because it's not on the slide. I want you to look up registered apprenticeships. So there is a such thing as registered apprenticeships for individuals with disabilities. So this may be a factor to look at. You can look up your area, your zip code, and it can tell you what opportunities are out there, and you can kind of peruse those. But they do go through the Department of Labor, and there are requirements, and I mean, they're like pretty good programs. But this is for kids maybe that they're not going to go to school. Maybe they can learn a trade specifically. So just check those out. And then there is the Job Accommodation Network, this website for that as well. You can learn more about the reasonable accommodations. Veronica, do we have any questions?
The question were about the PTS and ETS, what that means, and then I have an error in the typing, and I just put I correct that. So no, right now we're good. We're good.
Okay, perfect. No issues. Okay, so educational options post high school. So there are all kinds of programs out there, and this is not an exhaustive list of everything that is available in Texas. Some of these programs have programs that are specifically designed for kids with intellectual disabilities, but also understand that clearly there are many, many kids that have disabilities that do not have intellectual disabilities. So for the state of Texas, when we're talking about intellectual disabilities, we're talking about an IQ of 70 or below, okay? So there's a mix of programs out here. Some are, I think the only one that's not in Texas is Lynn University, the Metamorphosis program. That's actually in Florida. But everything else on here is in the state of Texas. And these are various programs that you should look at, research early, and consider. But understand what the application date is, when does it open, when does it close, et cetera. Some of these programs, most of these programs are really awesome, but some of them may only have 4 seats, 4 new seats, 6 new seats. It's not like they just have like an unlimited perpetual enrollment that they're doing. So, so if there's a particular program that you're really interested in, you're going to want to know those deadlines early. You're going to want to get your application in a timely manner, and kind of just go through that. Now, we do have multiple resources of additional lists with links and additional programs through the state of Texas. So if you email us, we're happy to connect you with a deeper dive list on some of the programs that actually even has a program description. It kind of talks a little bit more. It'll probably help you narrow down some that might be a good fit and some that would not be. Okay, so we talked about Bloom Consulting a few minutes ago. I just, join the webinar tomorrow with Bloom. It'll be worth your time. They have a lot of different programs. Their website is worth going out to check out to see some of the different programs that they are. But they have a campus connection program that was what I'm talking about right now. This campus connection program is really designed for a kid that is going on to the university. And, they're helping kids with various disabilities as they attend the post-secondary institution. It's basically a wraparound program. And so they pair the students with a coach and they do the mentoring and the guidance and they're really helping. And it's kind of taking you out of that equation, like as a parent. And I don't mean like removing your parental, duties or anything like that. But sometimes our kids at this age, they don't always want to hear what we have to say. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes at my house, I'm not the smartest woman in the whole wide world, according to my kids. But we were all like that too. And we thought our parents were really dumb when we were teenagers as well. So anyway, it's kind of the natural progression of life as we have our teens moving into adulthood. But the cool thing is they're going to work with them. They're going to work alongside with them, and they're going to give them the help and the resources that they need to be successful at the university level. Again, Bloom Consulting is able to do all of the assessments to see if your child will, have the capacity to be successful at higher education. But this particular wraparound program is $1,000 per month. It is private pay. Sometimes VR will cover this as well. If it's part of your plan through VR, it's possible to get this covered. So again, it's my recommendation. Check out their website. Check out the different programs they have, because they do have many. They also have a house in the greater Houston area, kind of like a group home setting. But anyway, they're really awesome. I'm familiar with the people that run Bloom, and we've partnered with them in the past, and we definitely like them. I'm also keenly aware that this particular campus connection program is going quite well at Sam Houston State University. The other thing that I would say is all colleges are not created equally. The Office of Disability, some offices of disability are really, really good, and some of them are really, really bad. So as you're considering the various universities, community colleges, or what have you, I suggest if you have a child that needs accommodations, that you shop the offices of disability first and see if they're going to be able to support your child. Because quite honestly, if the Office of Disability is bad, you need accommodations, maybe you should take that school off of your list is basically what I would say. So this Campus Connection program at Sam Houston State University, and I do happen to know that that the Office of Disability at Sam Houston, they're doing a phenomenal job. Okay. So how do you get started with special needs planning, and what do you really need to know about that? So, Consolidated Planning Group, we are a holistic special needs planning firm, planning and consulting. That's really what we do. So, first things first, we want you to work with a special needs planner to help you formulate your plan. What is the why behind that? So, what we will say is that your situation is specialized. You have a special needs child. If you have a child that may need care for the rest of their life, or we quite frankly don't know, we're still hopeful and optimistic, but we don't know, we have to plan accordingly. Your situation is specialized. Okay, so as a special needs planner, we have similar licenses, all the same really as other financial advisors and financial planners, but we are also nuanced in special needs. We're a member of the Academy of Special Needs Planners. We're nationally certified as Social Security advisors. So I like to, here's where I really like to talk about the difference between a special needs planner and a special needs attorney, because oftentimes we get called on a weekly basis saying, hey, I need help setting up special needs trust. Can you help me with guardianship? So, such and such. So when you're doing special needs planning, there's two professionals that you're going to need to work with. One is the special needs planner, one is the special needs attorney. Okay. So the attorneys they're the documents. They're the paper. They're the things that you need in place: the guardianship, the power of attorney, the wills, healthcare power of attorney, supported decision-making agreement, guardianship, those types of things. That's the attorney. And what I like to say is, where are the money? We want to make sure that you guys have money in the right buckets, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. And because as your child is transitioning, it's super important that you guys have your money in the right buckets, so that way it's going to preserve their eligibility for SSI and Medicaid and other things that maybe they haven't qualified for in the past. But as you start this process, first things first, it's not about looking back. It's not about beating yourself up about what you haven't done or what you started and didn't finish or anything like that. It's about getting started. So you want to gather all the necessary planning documents. This is any planning that you've done so far. This could be insurance, life insurance, disability, long-term care, maybe through your employer, maybe outside of your employer. This is going to be all of your statements: stocks, bonds, mutual funds, 401k, 403b, pension. This is going to be wills, trust, any legal documents that you already have in place, as well as your Social Security statements. So that's kind of the first things first, is gathering those documents. Then you want to think about developing a letter of intent. We have a whole webinar on letters of intent, but this is like a family love letter. I call that a family love letter to your family members, basically highlighting what all of your intentions are for your loved one with special needs. It gives the lay of the land. It gives all the details about your loved one, their diagnosis, their history, their doctors, their medications, everything that you have you've probably forgot more than anybody else will ever know. But if you become incapacitated or you pass away, does somebody else know all of this information? Is it in writing? Could somebody else step into your shoes and handle these things for your loved ones? So we do have a template for this. It's actually a 20-page template. But so we want that to be on your radar of things that you want to get started. We would want you to revisit this letter of intent probably twice a year, or if your child's medical needs change more fluidly than that, then we would want you to update that more frequently. But also develop a vision of how you hope things will look for not only your special needs child, but you and your spouse, if you're married, and your own retirement. We're going to spend 25 to 35 years in retirement. If we have a child that needs care for the rest of their life, not just the rest of ours, we've got to find some balance. And we spend our whole life working and saving for that retirement, that one day we're going to travel more or do more of what we enjoy or volunteer or whatever. So there's got to be, if you have a child that's going to need care for the rest of their life, there's got to be some balance as you look at the future, as you look at respite for yourself and future care for your child. So one of the questions that comes up on a pretty regular basis is, who is going to care for my child when I'm gone? So developing a future care plan now is going to answer some of these questions. At Consolidated Planning Group, one of the questions that we get weekly, every week, and really daily is, I need help in assessing how much it's going to cost future care for my child. I know that my child has care needs and will have care needs the rest of their life. But I need to plan accordingly, and I want to get started sooner versus later, because I know it's going to be a lot, but I need you to help me determine what that future cost analysis is going to be. So we definitely do that type of work. But we also suggest considering touring facilities such as Brookwood, Marbridge Foundation, Daymark Living. There's just so many of them out there. We do have a list of the various facilities that are out there. getting your name on the list. So if you know your child is never going to live independently, we may have plans for them to live with us until we're no longer able. Some families have plans for their kids to live with them until they're 18, until they're 25, or what have you. But some of these facilities, the waiting list can be 5 years or longer. So you may want to get yourself on some of these lists. Just because you come up on the list doesn't mean that you have to take the slot. But if you need care for your child. Some of them have respite programs. Some of them have day programs. Some of them have overnight, like residential programs. So just check that out. Get yourself on the list. And again, reserve yourself the right to say no, that you're not interested, but not be in a position where you really need help and you can't get it because the waiting list is so long.
Yes,
So we got a question?
Yes, about the same. Catherine has a question. Do you know if there are any of these facilities Medicaid subsidized? Like Brookwood isn't. And also, she needs the list of these facilities.
So again, you can email us for the list of the facilities that we have. So some are private pay, and some do accept Medicaid. Fewer and fewer are accepting Medicaid. And then the HHS website, you can look for the home and community-based services. The HHS website will have ones that take Medicaid, and they will also, it'll show you the communities. It'll show you how many beds they have, how many beds are full. But we do have a good list. So again, if you reach out to us, we'll be happy to send that to you. One of the things that we want to say is that we want you to make careful considerations before naming siblings as a future caregiver. And here, I'm not here to step on anybody's toes or insult anybody, because I've heard everything. Okay, remember, I'm a mom. I've got 2 special needs kids, so I'm not offending anybody. Because I hear families say, well, my son loves his brother and he will be his future caregiver. Okay, that's what I hear. And unless the kids are 20 years apart, I don't recommend that, right? Unless one's a super adult and the other one's, I just really don't recommend that. And I guess what I would say here is just remember how you felt when you were 18 or 22 or 25. Did you have hopes and dreams? Did you want to buy a car? Did you want to buy a house? Did you want to get married? Did you want to have kids? Did you want to graduate college? Did you want to have a really meaningful, powerful career? What were your hopes and dreams? Because like all young people have hopes and dreams. And imagine yourself if you were 22, 25. Imagine yourself if you were 30 years old and you were given the responsibility of the caregiver for your severely disabled sibling. Would you have been able to reach your hopes and dreams? Would you be where you are now if you were, I hate to use the word, saddled with that responsibility without the capacity to make that happen? Would someone have married you if you were, if you had, custody of your disabled sibling? Anything could happen, right? So those are the things that when I say make careful considerations, I'm not saying absolutely don't ever do this. I'm just saying really think about it. And the attorneys are going to tell you the same thing. What we like to see and what we help people do is really getting your financial house in order, making sure that we've got a special needs trust in place, that there's adequate funding for the future needs and the future care for your loved one. And we like to see that sibling being a future trustee of the trust that helps, guide the care for the loved one. So then that way that they can have a loving, awesome relationship instead of one of the obligatory nature that could be some resentment there. So that's the reasoning behind that. All right, we got another question.
Related to the Health and Human Services, the HHS. Do you know this list that you tell us to look at, they are just for Texas, or this is nationally?
I think that there's the HHS website I'm talking about is for Texas, so I wasn't looking at it from a national perspective. The Health and Human Services, you should be able to look at it for that particular state. That's what HHS, Health and Human Services. So you should be able to look up the particular state, but I was speaking for Texas.
For Texas, right? Yeah. I think we have another question. Are the resources for families, are there resources for families that don't have money?
Well, I mean, Medicaid in itself, okay, so Medicaid in itself, there's 107 Medicaid programs in the state of Texas, okay? So again, I think that's the HHS website, and apply for Medicaid. And you kind of put your information in, and it will tell you what programs you might be available, what might be available to your child. There are resource limits as it relates to Medicaid and whether or not a person is going to qualify. And basically, the resource limits are very, very low. So if you're married, if you have more than $3,000 to your name, if your child is under the age of 18, okay, that's what I'm talking about, minors right now. It's based off of the parents' resources, not the kids. So if you have more than $3,000 to your name, basically not qualifying for Medicaid. Now, there are some Medicaid buy-in programs. There's MDCP. There's some different buy-in programs and things like that. But again, you put all your information in that website, and it's going to spit out which programs you might be eligible for, the child might be eligible for. All of that changes. So it's based off of your income, your household assets and income prior to the child turning 18. But once the child turns 18, so then here's that transition word again, is it's based off of the child's assets and their income, not yours. So even though the child still lives in your household, it's based off of the child's assets and income, not yours. So they've gone 18 years and not, maybe in some examples, they've gone 18 years and not qualified for anything whatsoever. And then all of a sudden, when they turn 18, they start qualifying for things. And some people don't even know to reapply because they didn't even have any idea that their child would ever be covered for anything. So when we're talking about funding for your child, we a lot of our webinars, and so if you've attended in the past and this seems repetitive, just mark it down. Just know every time you attend a webinar with us, we're going to talk about this because I think that this is something that there is the most confusion on as it relates to special needs families, and the most items for discussion here that come up. The main thing that we want you to do, so if you're not getting SSI and Medicaid at this time, we want you to preserve your eligibility for state and federally funded programs. SSI is a means-based program. This has to do with being indigent, okay? So again, SSI and Medicaid are for families that are indigent. They have, if they're married, they have less than $3,000 assets to their name. If they're single, they have less than $2,000 assets to their name. So again, your child could spend 17 years not qualifying for anything, and then all of a sudden, once they turn 18, they will qualify. Just one moment. I talk all day, every day, and then by this time, my voice is waning. So there are places that you can have money above the $2,000 or the $3,000, and that is going to be an ABLE account and a special needs trust. So if you have money more than the $2,000 or the $3,000, it can be in a special needs trust, or it could be in an ABLE account, and it won't be counted against the individual for the count through SSI and Medicaid. So for SSI and Medicaid, so typically the application process, you're going to schedule a phone call with your local Social Security office. They're not meeting face-to-face, so due to COVID-19, the local Social Security offices have been closed. They're only seeing people on an emergency basis. An emergency basis is like both parents died or something crazy. Most people don't have emergencies. But you can call and schedule your appointment for the application for Social Security through the Social Security Administration for SSI and Medicaid. Okay, so again, SSI is a means-based program. The confusing thing is Social Security Disability. It's also known as SSDI. It's also known as Social Security. SSDI is a program that you pay into. This is a worker program. So a lot of our kids haven't worked, so they haven't paid in. They don't have Social Security disability because they haven't paid into the program. This is where you look at your Social Security statement and it talks to you about how many working quarters you have. The thing is if we have a child with a disability and their child disability started prior to age 22, it is possible, likely, that your child will be covered for Social Security disability under a parent's record, okay? So if you have a child that disability started prior to age 22, they can be considered for childhood disability benefits. They used to be referred to by the Social Security Administration as a disabled adult child under a parent's record, but now they're calling it childhood disability benefits. But basically what this is if you retire or become disabled, your disabled adult child will be eligible for 50% of your Social Security benefits. So in the example that your Social Security benefits are $3,000 a month, your child would be eligible for $1,500. Now, that is a quick down and dirty calculation, and it gets muddled if we have a spouse that is drawing off of another spouse's record, or if we have more than one child with a disability in the household that started prior to age 22. There are family maximums, but we can help you with all of that. So the main thing is knowing to have the money in the right bucket. So what if, what I didn't say about SSI and Medicaid, you're allowed to have one house and one car. Okay, so if you've got one house and you've got land, then you're out, right? If you've got one house and 3 cars, you're out. Sometimes you can get by with one house and 2 cars if one of the cars is super, super old and you say you plan to sell it for final expenses for your child. That's one way. Or it's super, super old and the value of it is like almost non-existent. Sometimes they'll let that fly as well. Okay, so special needs trust, ABLE account, those are places that we can have money outside and not be counted against for SSI and Medicaid. Those are the main things that you need to know. If you have money in your child's name, it is important that they do not have more than $2,000 in their name. So what happens if they do? First of all, I get this question all the time. Can I just close the account? Can I just take the money? Can I just move it? So there's no such thing as like hiding the money. You know, we don't hide money. But what you can do is it can move into an ABLE account. It can move into a special needs trust. It could be spent down on the child's needs. So you can show, you know, it doesn't matter. Maybe they have tutoring, maybe they have, you know, prescription drugs, maybe they have out-of-pocket uncovered medical expenses, maybe they need an iPad, maybe they need a new computer because they do their homework at home. They're on online school. So you can spend down some of those assets. So that is a way to move it around. Okay. Veronica, is this a good time for questions?
Let me open my video. I think we have just one question. It says, are the programs to help poor kids with special needs paid for college?
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole other webinar. And so we actually have a webinar on our YouTube channel that talks about special needs, college for special needs. And it talks about all kinds of funding sources and scholarships and other things that you can be aware of. There's a ton of programs out there, so for sure. What do I need to know about ABLE accounts? So an ABLE account, the beneficiary is the account owner, the income earned in the account is not taxable and contributions are not deductible, but it does not jeopardize SSI and Medicaid, which is kind of what we had already talked about, but there are special contributions and distribution limits. We do have entire presentations for ABLE, but basically what you need to know is you can put $15,000 a year into an ABLE account. You can, if you have a 529C, you can transfer from a 529C to an ABLE account, $15,000 a year if you want to do that. And there are additional amounts that you can put in if the child is working. So when do I need a special needs trust and guardianship? So the special needs trust is going to preserve the benefit eligibility for your child while providing resources for your special needs child. Guardianship, again, special needs trust, guardianship, we have entire presentations dedicated to these topics, but guardianship can be applied for 6 months prior to the child turning 18. You're going to want to work with a qualified attorney on this to prepare these documents. All attorneys are not created equally. All attorneys are not specialized in special needs, so you want to work with one that is. We make referrals all the time for attorneys all across the state that we know do a great job in working with special needs. There are alternatives to guardianship. Sometimes people do a power of attorney and healthcare power of attorney. Sometimes they do that along with the supported decision-making agreement, which is available in the state of Texas. And sometimes they apply for partial guardianship, but these attorneys will really listen to you and kind of where you are, where the child is. They'll meet with your child and then they'll help you make the right decision. But guardianship can be backed up in the future. So what I mean is for guardianship, sometimes our families need guardianship now because their kids aren't there yet. And we're so hopeful and optimistic that they'll get there. But so basically you could have guardianship, but your child could get their rights back. So as they mature or they are able to function in life as you had hoped. So an attorney can talk to you about all of that. So we've really talked about a lot of things today. These are just things, and we always put these at the end of all of our presentations of things that should be on your special needs planning radar. As a National Social Security advisor, we are able to do a comprehensive Social Security analysis that's really going to tell you exactly when and how to pull the trigger on Social Security. So if you're in a pre-retirement zone, we've got kids that are transitioning. We got families that may be thinking about retiring in the next 5 to 10 years. Sometimes it's real soon. But we can do that Social Security analysis, and it's going to tell you dollars and cents when is the smartest time to pull the trigger, what you're going to be entitled to, who's entitled to what, the family maximums, et cetera. Again, I think the big thing where we come into play is doing these future care cost estimates. And what we suggest is that we plan for the worst. We're going to hope for the best, plan for the worst. If we plan for the worst and everything goes great with your child and we don't need what we planned for, that's okay. Your retirement is just going to look a lot better, right? But I think that the key is really knowing and looking at what it is, what do we need, help me figure out what this number looks like, how do we get there? And, one of the places people get there, you can be naturally affluent and you can fund a special needs trust for your child, but a lot of people fund with current assets, or they also fund with proceeds from life insurance. So those are things to consider. But all of these things should be on your radar. So look for upcoming webinars from us on these topics. Also, look at our YouTube channel to look at some of the past webinars. But we literally have webinars on all the Texas Workforce Commission, Workforce Solutions. We have it on the Special Needs Trust, the guardianship. I mean, basically every single topic we've talked about, the letter of intent. We have full presentations, dedicated to that. So I always just like to take a moment to say, meet my team. So I work on a collaborative team of professionals at Consolidated Planning Group. We are able to help and meet your help meet your needs in all of the planning arena. And again, we're members of the Academy of Special Needs Planners as well as the National Social Security Advisor. So we'd certainly look forward. And when we say collaborative team, we really do work together on cases. So that way, if I'm out of town, you might work with Andy or Michelle or Jeff, what have you. So the bottom line is whoever you're working with, you always have got an ear. You're always going to have a professional to work with our team. Okay.
A question, Allison. It says if they have an adult child is getting SSI. So the question is, it is better to put the money on a regular account and spend it, or put it in an able account?
Well, I think if there's, needs, I mean, $794 a month is the amount for SSI, right? So if I think most of the time the needs of our kids are much greater than $794 a month, the main thing is we don't want you building money up over $2,000. So if you have care needs for your child that need to be paid for out of the $794 a month, by all means, SSI is designed to provide help for food and shelter. That's what it's for. So use it for that. But if you start having money that is excess, that's where it needs to be going into an ABLE account or a special needs trust. That's a great question.
Also, they are asking about the presentation. You are going to talk about the YouTube channel. And also, we are going to send you guys an email with the presentation, the slides, and the link for the video later today.
Yeah, so the link right now is on the screen for the YouTube channel, our Facebook page. Additional events or speaking events that we have going on will be listed out there on the Facebook page. If you're interested in a free personalized consultation, certainly reach out to us. We'll have a link in the email today of how you can schedule a one-on-one with us if you're interested in doing that, how to reach us. There'll be a link for the YouTube channel, the Facebook page. There will also be a copy of today's slides attached and a link for today's video because we have been recording. So just any other questions, Veronica? That's all I have for today.
That's it. It's 1 p.m. Thank you guys for being with us today, and wait for our information. We are going to email you guys with the information of today. Allison?
Thanks so much. Thanks so much for having us, and we look forward to partnering with you again soon. Take care. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Bye.